Hello and welcome to Guy Logic. My name is Temco and today we are taking a look at a game called Moon Hunters. The game is brought to you by an indie studio by the name of Kitfox Games, and they launched the game on Kickstarter a while back, raising wildly more than the expected $45k at nearly $200,000. And the game is coming out on March the 10th over on Steam. It's coming out on consoles down at a later date, so we'll see where that ends up. Now, the question we're going to answer obviously is, did they use their additional Kickstarter money well? Did they reach their stretch goals? And is the game any good? Well, before we can answer those questions, we're going to first have to explain what the game is all about, shouldn't we? Moon Hunters is a lot like a roguelike, but it does miss quite a few elements that make roguelikes like Rogue. The game is procedurally generated, and it is a 1 to 4 player co-op action RPG. You have some combat mechanics, and there is a finite end to each run. The game expects you to play it a numerous number of times to figure out a variety of unlockables that you can use for future runs, such as the ability to talk to animals or the ability to talk to the dead. You have to unlock these during a run and then be able to use them for a subsequent run later on. This way you can change the story you experience in pretty significant ways with a variety of the playable characters. So, before we dive into the gameplay, and I will explain to you much better than I just did how the game is and does the things it does, because it is a pretty interesting concept. First, we're going to talk about the options and the PC performance. If you do not want to hear about that, well, press the annotation that has appeared somewhere on screen and you'll be able to skip straight on ahead to the gameplay section. For the rest of us, the options menu. The game is made in a 2D pixel art style, so it's not unexpected not to have all the fancy smancy options you'd expect from a 3D game. So there's no graphical options to speak of. Now, while I would have liked to have some of those, they are not a requirement for this kind of title, and that is okay. What isn't really okay is the fact that even though they have master music and sounds volumes, they don't have a narrator voice volume or a dialogue volume. That one is tied directly into the master volume, which is a bit weird because the narrator is obviously very different from having the overall sound effects. Maybe I want the overall sound to be softer, but the voice of the narrator needs to be a bit louder. This is why some games have dialogue options. This one doesn't, so that's the main drawback of the sound option menu. Other than that, the sounds are pretty good and the volume sliders work as they should. Full screen on or off, resolution options, a variety of languages. Overall, pretty good. There is key bindings. These are grayed out in the main menu, but you can access them in-game. I'm not sure why they're grayed out here, but such is the fact. Yeah, this is really the options menu. It's fine, I guess. It doesn't have colorblind mode. It doesn't have full screen windowed, which is a bit of a shame. I would have liked to see that because the game is definitely something you play on the side a little bit. You play for like half an hour and then you quit and you come back later on and you have another session of 45 minutes or so. There's that. Another big thing I want to touch upon is the online beta. The game is coming out full release and this is still in beta. So you might say, well, it's not done yet. They need a little bit more time. And then I say delay the release. At the current time, the online multiplayer functionality is basically unusable. You can barely connect to other people. Even over a network locally here, we had major issues with connectivity and the game would kick us out randomly at any given time. Online component also has a bunch of issues regarding basically everything. We have used a local LAN for Hamachi to play over longer distances. Even that kicked us out. We have used the actual internet, but we had to use port forwarding to get that to work. We used the local LAN, but we had to use the host IP of the unit in the local LAN, which also fiddled out. There was quite a few issues regarding the game on its online state. Also, there were delays. Money and currency weren't displayed properly. Available skiers weren't visible for other people. Certain interactions weren't available. One thing my co-host Zizia had a lot of trouble with was that one of the end bosses in the game, he was unable to fight it. He couldn't hit it. The hit point bar was empty, but I could hit and destroy the end boss. So there's a lot of issues going on with the online multiplayer. So be very, very careful if you're thinking of playing the game with multiple people. It works fine with the controller, and you can sit on the couch and play the game just fine with 4 people. You just can't do it online effectively right now. The online part is very, very buggy. Maybe they'll fix it before release. This is being recorded on March 7th. As such, they may fix some things, but as of this recording, it is pretty broken. Be very careful on the online part. So, gameplay wise, let's get into it, shall we? Every game has up to 4 players that can join. This is local co-op. The online variant is the same, but then online co-op. A player joins a game. You can pick one of 6 classes, or one of 6 characters, you would say. And the Sun Cultist and the Sun Weaver are both characters they have added as a direct result of the Kickstarter implementing these classes. You can unlock them in the game while playing. I've unlocked both of them. Further, you can unlock costumes. For example, I've unlocked the Ancient Witch costume. This does a little bit of an effect in-game. It doesn't exactly look pretty, but it's there nonetheless. And you can see how it looks here in the bottom left. So there's 6 classes, and each class is more of an archetype that each does their own thing. The Spellblade, for example, is part of the Mountain People, and he has dialogue options and abilities related to the Mountain People that, for example, the Ritualist or the Druid will not have. And the same goes for the Sun Cultist, the Song Weaver, and the Witch. Each of them has unique abilities, and each of them has unique interaction and development options. So we're going to go with the Witch here and start the game. Now, once all players that are available in the game start the game, it instantly loads up. It asks all players where they are from, and then it starts you off in that location. You can only pick one location for all players, so you will always start in the same place, and you will always share a screen. There is no split screening. You're all occupy the same screen space. Sadly, I can't show you that in this preview or review because I'm on my own. So I've unlocked 3 of the tribes. There's a 4th one. I haven't unlocked that one yet. And you start with Dustfolk and Wolf Clan. And then the High Tribe gets unlocked once you get to their stronghold, playing the game through various runs. So we're going to go with the Wolf Clan. And the game loads you in through this cutscene and load screen. I'm going to skip all of that, not to spoil the story. And if you want to see that sort of thing, that is what you'll be seeing. Now, this is the game's dialogue screen, and it looks pretty nice. This art style is really nice, and the way the interaction goes is really nice. You can use mouse and keyboard to control, but the game works just as good, if not better, on a controller. Which is a bit annoying, honestly, because the control scheme is mostly suited, I think, for mouse and keyboard. But somehow they've implemented it with controls in mind for consoles, because the game is coming on console. They've sort of, in doing that, weakened the keyboard and mouse controls. They work fine, but certain things like the menu options, I mean, I can press this button here in the top left for tab, all I like, but it doesn't really do anything. I really have to press tab to open this, and this is not something we're used to. The buttons are a little bit fiddly. Pressing all these buttons to cycle through your various pages is a little bit fiddly. It doesn't really register that well. Well, it does great on the keyboard. So, and also it does great on the controller. Now, let me explain the UI and how it works. First things first, this is your character. The arrow pointing around it is the direction it's facing. You attack with left mouse button, and you do your secondary attack with right mouse button. The Witch has a big laser beam. You see, it drains the green bar, which is your energy. Other than that, you can press space for a different special ability. The Witch is a charge. The Druid transforms into a big dog. The Ritualist teleports. So each class has its own set of unique abilities. You have your hit points, which is the red bar in the top left. Your green bar, as I said, is energy. And at the bottom left, you have your minimap, which you can toggle on or off. This is most of the UI. Everything else is dialogue option choices you get when talking to characters. I'll show you that in a second. But let me first show you how your character is built up. Each character has these 6 stats, from endurance all the way down to charm. These unlock a variety of things. Leadership, for example, if you are playing with multiple people, decides whose decision will be leading in a tie. So if you have 2 people, both decide something else. Out of a variety of options, the one that has leadership will win the tie. Obviously, you should always communicate with your co-players, because it is co-op and not versus. Endurance increases your health, spirit increases your energy regen, strength increases your physical damage, and all of these also help you with various interactions, various abilities, various things you can do in the world, and they also unlock a variety of things you can unlock in the game world. As you can see, the game world is this amazingly well-crafted pixel art style. And each time you talk to someone, it shows up like this dialogue window. I'm going to have a choice. She weeps silently, tears falling on a newly looking grave. She claps a wolf-toothed pendant, white-knuckled. So do you have now? I now have two choices. I can either accept, or at least tell her to have acceptance for the loss of Tibera. I'm not sure who Tibera is, but that's a character. Or I can tell Zorai Nakal to take revenge. Based on the choice I make, that will shape my mythology later on for future playthroughs. So if I press accept, you say, no, I can't, I will not do, and she'll spit at my feet and runs away. But I feel more wise. And I get a stat, and stats give you reputation. If I get more wise points from doing wise actions, my reputation will turn into the wise one, or the compassionate, or the kind, or the brave, or the foolish, etc, etc. And this will unlock a variety of abilities and a variety of interactions that will then become available to me. Also, running around, you can cut down some of these mushrooms, you can cut down some bushes, you can even cut down certain passages. And you will find these characters everywhere. Sometimes you do not have an interaction. For example, I will only have an interaction with this character where I'm playing a blade dancer, or a blade singer, or a song priest. Because I'm not one of those, I will not have an interaction with this NPC. And once you're finished with an area, you go to camp. A camp is basically the end of a day cycle. Now, the game will have a very clear-cut progression through the story. You will always start in the outskirts, then go to town, whichever town you chose, followed by an exploration into an area, and then you will have an interaction with the big enemy. And then you have 3 or 4 more turns of interaction with various areas in the world to unlock new things or to find out the progression of the main story, followed by an end battle, and that is the end of your run, and you will have to start from scratch again. Maybe you've unlocked some things, such as I've unlocked a new tribe, the mountain tribe, or maybe you've unlocked a costume, a new class, or something like that, and you can play the game again and again. Now you can see, once you finish a level, or a map, it will give you a little bit of information. Even small children know the name of Kubale, whose strength deems blessed by the Queen of Heaven. So I'm already well known in this situation. I have killed 9 things, I have 0 deaths, and I am considered rowdy. Not sure why that is, probably because I killed a bunch of things. It will load you up in the load screen and get you to camp. Now, a camp is the place where a lot of interactions happen overnight. Depending on what kind of things you decide to do, you can keep watch, hunt, stargaze, you can cook recipes, I'll show you what it means, from a variety of ingredients, and I have only 6 out of 95 known recipes, so you combine these ingredients, and you get something of a meal there. You can also rest. Now, there you go, mix something up, egg and water. What do we get from there? We get a boiled egg. Everybody gains +3 spirit. So, when you're playing with co-op mode, cooking helps everybody in your party. So it's really good to have, if you have 4 people for example, to have 1 person cook for everyone. That way everybody gains a stat, and then rotate that to whoever's cooking, so everybody gains a bonus instead of just 1 person gaining their own bonus. And these bonuses are pretty interesting. You can also sleep, and each of these areas gives you a specific bonus. Some will give you endurance, some will give you strength, some will give you spirit. And this will allow your character to go better at those stats. Now, once you finish an area, you can decide to travel somewhere else. As you can see, outskirts only allows me to travel to Kisura, which is the main town. After that, I will be able to travel to a variety of locations on this world map. And this world map is randomly generated from a biome of forest, grassland, desert, lakes, and mountains. And you can unlock various biomes, such as lakes, and deserts, and mountains, based on the gameplay progression earlier. So, your first couple of progressions are going to be pretty limited, based on what you have unlocked. Now, for example, I can now talk to this bird here, because I unlocked speaking to animals in an earlier run. I can now see and hear what this bird is saying. Previously, before I unlocked the ability to talk to animals, this would only tell me that this bird gawked at me and I should probably find somewhere to learn how to talk to them. Now it tells me we're all doomed. There's that. NPC vendors allow you to unlock upgrades for your abilities. These are not exactly the game's strongest point. Each character has a couple of abilities. you could see my B, my attack earlier, and the dash I had. And this will give you a couple of ways to upgrade them using the opals, which is some of the glowy things I picked up earlier. This is probably the game's weakest part, because you can find these vendors everywhere, and opals drop from basically everywhere. But the upgrades are not exactly what you call interesting. They don't really change, they're always the same, so they get really boring after a while. It's always, Blood Harvest, increase stamina when you get hit. Resolve is always the blood charge uses less stamina. Surge is always that blood charge does more damage. And so forth and so on. So, that's a bit of a disappointing part of the game. Definitely combat is not the game's strongest suit, because it is very simple. It is all about the interactions with NPCs and characters. So I could interact with this character here, and it'll tell me, that a great mother will come back, don't worry. And I can say, well, I'll help. And it says, if you see a spirited young girl in the forest, 10 summers old, tell Felissa her father demands to return home. Cool, now I know. I got a little stat there, and now I know there's a girl missing. I can talk to this character. She said, oh no, sorry for my early outburst, because the character we met early in the forest. And so on and so forth. And you talk to all these NPCs to figure out what is going on and what you can interact with. For example, previously there was an NPC right here who would tell me, oh no, you can find a magical cat that will teach you how to talk to animals. Because I found that magical cat and she has taught me how to teach the animals, this NPC is now missing. And so on. For example, this is a good interaction. There are elders who are swapping nostalgic stories of mistakes in their youth. Perhaps someone more patient would listen to their rambling. If I had the patient stat, I would probably get something out of this dialogue. Because I don't have that stat, because I either didn't get it in this playthrough, or because I started here and I don't have any stats, I can't figure out what is going on here. Maybe if I was starting in like a mountain town and traveled to this town, and I had the patient stats somehow, then I will be able to see what they're talking about. And this is the basis of the game. All these interactions allow you to do that. Now, I'm gonna skip straight ahead and let you figure out the story for yourself, but suffice to say that it all's all about finding the moon goddess. Now, this is pretty interesting because some things happened. Also, you can hear talk. Now there's a spirit. And this is a pretty interesting part. Like I said earlier, I could already unlock how to talk to animals, but I haven't unlocked how to talk to dead spirits. So, the spirit is here, and he probably has some interesting information to share, but I don't know because I can't talk to him. Well, once you finish in the zone, and you've bought all the upgrades you want, and you have unlocked everything, you leave. And you can then travel to different areas. Now, each area has a variety of things, and they are connected in a variety of ways. For example, I could go to Crumra now, which is the lake area, which I haven't never been before, so this is probably the 4th faction I haven't unlocked. I could go to the Forsaken Sands, which has honey, as well as an oasis. I'm not sure what that does. I could go to the Mushroom Mountain, that has upgrades, which is a vendor you can buy stuff at. So this is the least interesting one, because this one has honey, which is an ingredient for cooking I can unlock for further upgrades. It has an oasis, I'm not sure what that is. Or I can go to Quaram, which is somewhere I've never been, and is probably the 4th faction I need to unlock. So we're going to go with Quaram here. And this is fully random, because in previous runs I never had the chance to go to this area before. Now this allows me to enter this area, and talk to a bunch of NPCs. And these NPCs will give me a variety of dialogue options. As you can see, this is mostly the game. Again, here we have the same NPC vendor giving you unlocks. You can break a bunch of stuff, and sometimes you get opals out of that. And there's a variety of things you can do. There we go. I have gained patience. This is one of those ritualist priests, so that will tell you the what's going on here. And NPCs will tell you a bunch of things. Now, each area, we are honored by a visit. Heroic bringing news to explain the superstitious departure. Sun cult. Okay, so they want to fight. Good, that's good to know. I want to fight the Sun cult as well. Bunch of bastards. Stealing away my moon priestess. So basically I've interacted, I think, with everyone here. And we're gonna leave again. This allows me to go to the Moonbow Estuary, which has fish. Or all the way to the Whispering Solitude, which has nothing. We're gonna go to Whispering Solitude and see what's going on there. I've never been here. We're gonna head over here and see what is going on. Oh, we found a bit of opals. You can pick these up and have a bit more currency to do these things with. So for example, now I have 34 currency and I can buy unlocks for that. Uh-oh. And instantly I've now unlocked a bunch of... Holy mother of god, that's a lot of... This enemy is tough. So I'm now fighting an enemy. And this is the basis of the combat system. I sped it up quite a bit here for brevity's sake, but the combat system is about 3 times as slow as you can see in the rest of the video. Uh-oh, that's gonna hurt. Ah! There I died. And that really is the game. There you go. Run over. 17 minutes for a run. Actually, less than that for a run. And then you get a bunch of unlocks here that will tell you how your legend was formed. Accumulate the rows. And you'll get this based on everything that goes on. Skip ahead. I've unlocked a new constellation. You can now start from the Celentin hometown, which is the town I unlocked. And that's the only achievement I unlocked in this run. Let me say I'm going to be a witch again. Confirm that. So this is the game in a nutshell. And we can now start in the nomadic tribe.
Perhaps you've met them in a dream.
That will allow me to see what is going on. And this area again, you start off in a similar area. In a variety of enemies. Now, AI-wise, the enemies are pretty interesting. They don't have a lot of depth to them. Most of them just charge you, and that's really it. But there are a few interesting tidbits they do. Various enemies have a variety of weaknesses you can exploit. For example, the enemy I just killed had a hard front, and I had to hit him from the back. A boar will charge you, regardless of what's in the way, so you might charge into a wall if you're behind it. There is a lot of stuff you can have it. For example, snakes will poison you and do a dot on you, but they will only move in melee and then attack. A different mob will charge up its attack visually, and you can see that on screen, and you can dodge out of the way if you're fast enough. And you can see the earlier area I was in is very similar to this one in terms of gameplay. I would meet up in an area, I would explore the area in question. Gameplay. I've played the game for about 12 hours now, and I think I've done about 7 runs total. And this allows you to really see how much gameplay there is in the game, which is pretty interesting because I've only unlocked about half the possible routes, and I've never actually successfully gotten the true ending. I'm pretty sure there is a true ending, I just haven't gotten it yet. And I've gotten close to it a couple of times because I think I figured out what I need to do, but I just don't know for sure what the true ending ends up here. Now, earlier we saw the camp and then we cooked some food. As you can see, there is keeping watch, stargazing, hunting, etc. Because I'm a witch, I'm gonna go with stargazing and faith. So we're gonna go stargaze, and I'm gonna get another encounter. So this is the encounter that starts the rest of the game. After one of these, it says 3 days remaining. And once 3 days have remained, you can only do 3 maps, barring a few exceptions, that will allow you to progress the story. So all your actions and all the choices you make, it is really important that all of them are well thought out of, that they achieve something. Because you don't have a lot of leeway in experimenting with things within a run. Obviously, you can easily experiment using runs. I mean, there's no reason for you not to do that. The game is built around it. But within a specific run, you have to think of a strategy you're going for. And this is one of the things I don't like about the game so much. Each run only lasts between, like I said earlier, 15-20 minutes to about an hour. And you can end up making a couple of mistakes because you aren't sure what you're doing yet. And sometimes you get to end up fighting these mobs, which are way harder than they should be. And there's also no way to retreat out of an area. And there is no way to do things like redo a zone or load in a different area if you do not like an area, or do multiple areas before camping if you want to do that sort of thing, if you want to try your luck by going ahead of the curve. Now, as I said earlier, combat is probably the game's weakest point. And you can see that very well illustrated here. I'm fighting enemies mostly by just walking around and once in a while hitting them. And even though these enemies are very different from each other, I mean the troll or Etten or whatever it is throws rocks that bounce and hit you 2 times, and these crab shell things do no such thing, it is still very monotonous. And the same really applies for most of the combat interactions in the game. There is no real challenge in the combat. The game's main enjoyment comes from interactions you get from various NPCs. The various things you unlock and the variety of ways you can figure out what is going on. Like these little tidbits you unlock through the story. That is where the game shines. It is definitely not a game of mechanics. And that is a real shame, because I think if they spent more time figuring out the variety of mechanics in the game, then it would have been a lot stronger game for it in terms of gameplay. Right now, it is more of a narrative-driven game than anything else. It is very driven on the interactions and the variety of random encounters you do or don't do that allow you to figure out what is going on in the story. And while that is really good, and the writing is really good, and the little tidbits the game drops on each run are really interesting, the repetitive nature of the gameplay does draw away from that. I have played the game like 6 or 7 runs, and I'll probably play it for 4 or 5 more runs, giving me about 20 hours of gameplay total. But that is mostly where my enjoyment will end, because I will be redoing and retreading the same things and the same areas for fewer and fewer gains over time. And that is a bit of a shame. Now, having shown you all of the game, there's a couple of caveats I want to point out that are pretty important to know before you either choose to buy the game or don't, really. One of the main things is that the online part is very buggy. So if you're thinking of playing this game with friends over the internet, I would hold off on buying the game. It is just not playable that way. All I've shown you right now is locally on 1 player. And if you're playing it local on a couch with multiple people, then it is very, very enjoyable. But if you are playing the game over the internet, you will not be having a good time, because it is fundamentally broken at that point. Another thing I would like to mention is in regards to PC performance. Even though it's not notable as much in this game as it would be in a racing game, a fighting game, or any other 3D game, the game's performance is really bad. It is taxing my GPU 75%. I have a GTX 780, and the game cannot hold a stable 60 FPS on a pixel graphics 2D rendered game. That is abysmal. So it has very little animation. It doesn't have many moving parts. It's not a very heavy game in any graphical sense of the word, and yet it runs terribly. So from a technical standpoint, the game is a bloody mess. But from a aesthetic, from a gameplay, narrative standpoint, it is amazing. So I really hope the developers spend a lot of time bug fixing the game. And they've already delayed the release by a month from the initial release date to work on bug fixing. But I'm not sure what they've actually fixed in that period of time, because the game is still really buggy. And yes, most of the interactions in the single player campaign are really good, and I have not had many bugs in single player outside of the aforementioned performance issues. But the multiplayer is broken. I have had visual glitches in regards to mouse and keyboard controls, in how well they render, and I've had a variety of other issues regarding crashes and FPS drops in general. So yeah, technically it's a mess, and that's a real shame. On to the other 2 parts. Is there enough engaging, generated content to keep me playing over and over again through a repetitive campaign? The answer to that is mostly yes. The 6 classes, the combination of various areas, and new biomes and enemies you unlock keep the game pretty fresh and engaging for at least 15 to 20 hours, which is, I feel, a fair number of hours you can play on a roguelike or on an indie title for $15, which is the price this game is going for. Well, is the game worth the buy then? And the answer to that is yes, but not right now. Because the aforementioned performance issues and the mentioned issues with the online component for the multiplayer, it leaves a lot to be desired to the experience if you're trying to play with friends, which is really where the game shines through. If you're playing with friends, you work together to create this history, this mythology for based on your actions, and you can have arguments and you can decide and discuss things, and that is where the game really does shine too. Solo, it does provide some gameplay, and it does provide a story and a world that is interesting and rich, but it doesn't provide the hours and hours of content that it does through co-op. But it doesn't do that because of the bad performance on the PC game. So, my recommendation here is to wait until the developers have shown that they're fixing the vast majority of technical issues with this game. That they have shown a commitment to either stabilize or implement more features to the game based on the Kickstarter promise. They said they're reporting the game to console, and they have added most of the Kickstarter promises, but we're gonna have to see what they add in relation to that, and whether or not they fix the outstanding issues that we have come across. So, Moon Hunters, available on PC over on Steam on March 10th. This was a recording of the March 7th build, and any issues that may have been fixed in the meantime obviously will not be part of this video. The core gameplay loop is fun, but limited, and the online and technical parts of the game are an absolute mess. And if you like this video, press the like button below. If you didn't like this video, well, there's a dislike button for exactly that reason. And leave us a comment. Tell us what you think we can do better or what we did great. And if you want to see more content like this on the channel, just press that subscribe button. It's there for exactly that. And until then, I wish you a good day. And until next time, right here on Guy Logic.